Welcome back to the Critical Gentleman. Today we're going to try something new and do the first user-submitted collection review. Today's collection comes to us from a 22-year-old collector. For privacy reasons, I guess I'll refer to him by his initials AD. And he asks to mention that he is an aeronautical engineering student, is on somewhat of a budget, and would like some suggestions on what to add. So AD, we're going to try to help you out as much as I can. First up, we have some very nice elegant dress watches. I see you've got a Rolex Oyster Precision manual wind. These are great watches. I'm a big fan of the Rolex Oyster series. I have two myself. The ones I have are automatic. They're Oyster Perpetuals, but this is still along the lines of quality Rolex, especially for someone on a budget. And there's absolutely no shame in having a manual wound Rolex watch. The one you have seems to be in very nice condition. It is a vintage piece, just to give it the once over. It looks like the lume dots are original. It hasn't been reloomed. It looks like there hasn't been too much damage to the watch. I don't see any moisture or discoloration or corrosion or any kind of damage. So I would say overall, this is a really nice piece, and even though it has a little bit of wear, I would not necessarily have it refinished unless a like new watch is something you feel strongly about. Overall, I think it's a really strong part of your collection. I think vintage Rolex is huge in terms of the value that you can get, and I would definitely hold on to this one, at least until you can add another Rolex to your collection. Okay, next up is your Omega Geneve 1660163. This is a nice automatic winding, Omega Geneve, but this is a great one. It's from the 70s. It has those distinctive lume bits at the end of the hands, and from the photo you send it looks like it's in great shape. It's the crystal is very clear. Maybe it's a new crystal, I don't know, but it looks like a really nice watch. The only thing I might caution you about is that I think there may be a chance this has a repainted dial, and I know that's not great news, but hear me out. If you zoom in pretty far into this picture, there are a few giveaways here. The first is that the lume dot at 9 o'clock is missing. It's fallen off. The other is that the rest of them are a very bright white. In fact, brighter than I would imagine 70s era tritium should be, and it would indicate that they may have been either replaced or painted over. On top of that, you can almost see around each marker a little bit of white paint on the sides of the marker. Now that should definitely not be there, and it's kind of a giveaway that there's a very significant possibility that it may be repainted. Okay, we've got a third dress watch. This one is a Omega automatic 552 caliber yellow gold watch from 1962 with a very nice looking linen dial. I have to say, so far I think this one may be my favorite of dress watch in your collection. It looks really nice. It's got a no lume dial with no lume hands, which is very elegant. I think it looks very nice. The linen dial seems to be really in remarkable condition, and I haven't actually seen any dials quite like this before. I've seen linen dials before, but not quite in this pattern. So I think it looks really, really nice. I like it a lot. My one question is, I'd be interested to know if there's any origin story or where it came from, what market this watch was originally sold in. I think it is a great looking piece, and I think that this dial, however rare or exotic it may be, is very, very elegant and unique. And I think that part of collecting vintage watches is looking for watches that are unique so that you don't have the same things everybody else has. Okay, on to watch number 4. This one is also a dress watch. It is the Frédéric Constant Moonphase automatic with their in-house movement. This is a modern watch, so a bit of a departure from the 3 we saw before. And as far as modern watches go, Frédéric Constant is not such a terrible value. You get a lot for your money. If what you want is a Moonphase dress watch, a lot of the competition can get very, very expensive very, very quickly. So I think that in terms of filling a niche in your collection, Frederic Constant represents what I'll call a healthy price segment for those of us who can't necessarily spring for the JLC just yet. Okay, a couple more watches coming our way. AD does have some sports watches. The first is a Christopher Ward Trident Pro 38 mil with the black dial and vintage lume package. So I mentioned Christopher Ward in one of my other videos and talked about the new logo and how it, to me, kind of strayed from the aesthetic that they were trying to develop. This particular model has the old logo at the 12 o'clock position. I think it looks great. And I also really like the plain black dial, and the vintage lume is rather nice. So I think, again, modern diver value, Christopher Ward is pretty hard to beat. It's different than the rest of AD's collection. You know, if you're going for vintage, is that for collectability? Is that for value? Is that for style? I know AD mentioned to me, he said that he has small wrists like I do, and likes to choose watches beneath 40 millimeters, which I do the same thing. And vintage can also lend itself to folks with smaller wrists because, generally speaking, vintage watches are smaller. This 38 millimeter Trident Pro is also a smaller size for a modern watch. Exactly where in the collection does this fall? Obviously, it fills that diver niche, that sports watch categories, maybe something to wear every day because it's a modern watch. You don't have to worry about the performance of the vintage movement. Ultimately, where I stand on this timepiece is that I think it is an excellent watch and is a good value. I think it's a nice choice. Last up is my favorite watch in AD's current collection, and that is an Omega Automatic Speedmaster. So this is the same case and bracelet style as the Speedy Reduced, and this particular reference is a Japanese market only watch. You know, you might refer to it as a JDM model, but the fact is that this dial was only released for the Japanese market, and I think it looks really good. In fact, I like this dial much better than the regular Reduced. To me, the Speedmaster Reduced is the anemic younger sibling of the Speedmaster Professional. If you want a 38 millimeter Speedmaster, get one that doesn't just mimic a bigger watch. This dial is much more unique. There are Speedy Pros that look a little bit like this. I think the Gemini has a blue dial, so that's probably the one that's closest to this in terms of the bigger brother, so to speak. But I think this watch looks great. So AD mentioned to me that he wants an 8-watch collection. He's currently at 6. Where should we go from here? So I think it goes without saying that we've kind of reached our quota of dress watches for the time being. 4 out of 6 watches are dress watches. I would assume that the Frederic Constant is going to be the one that you would wear, for example, to an interview, you know, with a suit. You've got the precious metal watch in the Omega, the 552 caliber Omega gold watch. You've got the gold finished Geneve. I don't know whether that one's solid or capped or plated or what. And then you've got a steel Rolex. Now, these are all white dial dress watches, except for the linen dial Omega. And I think that we could be looking at either another chrono or potentially, you know, sort of a more casual style, either a Bauhaus design or something a little bit more stylized. So AD sent me some pictures of watches he was interested in. He mentions IWC 3707, Breitling Premier, Nomos Club, and the Zin 356. Now, let me start with what I do like. I do like the Zin 356. This is a smaller chrono. I think it's maybe 38 mil or smaller, and it has no bezel. I am a big fan of no bezel chronographs. Let's go back to the Nomos Club for a second. I really like Nomos. I don't like the Club, and that's just me. Again, that's totally a personal opinion. My personal favorite model from Nomos is the Neomatic, but of course that is over $2,500, and I think we're looking in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. Okay, as for the Breitling Premier, I'm going to put this as plainly as I can. I cannot justify spending money on a Breitling that's not the Navitimer. I'm a big fan of the Navitimer. It's their most iconic watch. It's, to me, their most appealing watch in terms of the design. And as fantastic as a Premier might be, I would just be wanting a Navitimer the whole time. Of the 4 options you've given me, I would definitely choose the Zin 356, but there are a few more options that you could go for. You mentioned that you're an aeronautical engineering student, and my question to you is, would you consider a watch that kind of embodies that culture? I imagine this would be some kind of pilot watch, and the options really are nearly endless. You've got the Speedmaster Professional, known for being flight qualified by NASA. You've got the Breitling Navitimer. Now, I recognize both of these are over your maximum budget of $2,000, but really not by a terrible amount. You can get a used Navitimer or a used Speedmaster for about $2,500, give or take. If you were willing to relinquish one of your dress watches, maybe the Geneve, for example, you could put that money towards a Navitimer or towards a Speedy Pro and really have a watch that kind of embodies what you're training yourself to do for the rest of your career. Now, if you don't want a Speedy Pro or you don't want a Navitimer, you've got the standard Flieger Pilot, and that's manufactured by any number of brands. Zin makes a Navitimer clone. You can find those cheaper than you can find a Navitimer. That would be a great addition. But I think in the end, for somebody who's going to spend a great deal of time and energy devoted to the world of aviation, your collection would be incomplete without a watch that reflected that world. Those are my recommendations. I would say either a Speedy Pro, a Breitling Navitimer, and of course the Zin 356 that you suggested too. I would shy away from the IWC 3707. It just doesn't seem to be anything special to me, unfortunately. The Navitimer Premier, that's totally your call. It's just not a watch for me, that's all. And then the Nomos Club, great watch. I prefer the Tangente. Again, that's your call as the person who will add it to his collection. So I hope this helped a little bit. My final thing that I'll leave you with is this question. If you had to forget about budget for a second and pick your holy grail, the one watch that if money were not an object, you would buy, what watch would that be? And then, is that in any way feasible? It's worth considering what I'll call a stretch goal, rather than settling for a watch that, yeah, sure, you'll be happy with, but ultimately won't satisfy that real desire for whatever piece it is that you think about every day in the back of your mind. Anyway, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you like what you see.